Hey everybody, today's August 2nd, and today we're going to look at the price of Bitcoin. And we're going to look at whether Bitcoin can continue up higher after this incredible breakout, or whether this is a bull trap and we may see the price continue down lower. Before we begin, please read this disclaimer. You can pause this video as you read it. Okay, so today's August 2nd, so it's a new month. We closed July green, finally, right? I've been waiting for this moment for a while now, and this is really important because for two reasons. First is that in a bear market, there tends to be more red candles than green candles, right? In 2018 and 2014, and in a bull market, right? In a strong bull market year like 2017 and 2013, where we had these mega breakouts, right? Just massive rallies. There's more green candles than red candles, right? So this year we already had three red candles after 6 consecutive green candles. This incredible rally from late last year into March of this year, followed by 3 consecutive red candles. And this really worried me because we never had 3 consecutive red candles in our bull market years, 2017 and 2013, right? The worst was in 2013, where we had 2 consecutive red candles, which basically was bought by this incredible reversal hammer, which led to more all-time highs by the end of 2013. So this was sort of like a double peak year, right? Peaked here, pulled back 80%, and then went up higher. And so that's sort of what myself and a lot of other people have said might happen, is that we might have a double peak here, where we had this sort of incredible rally from late last year into earlier this year, peaked at around 65,000, fell 50% instead of 80% back in 2013, and then make a new high by the end of this year, right? And the fact that we closed, not only did we close July green, but we also closed with a nice reversal hammer pattern, right? And you can see how these wicks down here, these lines, these thin lines, these are basically buyers coming in, stepping in to push the price up and hold the support level every time it comes down. And this support level is 30,000, right? And why is that important? Because this is our Fibonacci support level. I've said many times that Fibonacci levels act as strong support and resistance levels, right? And this is our zooming into the daily chart. You can see that in our first correction this year, back in January, we held 30,000 when we came down. This is our Fibonacci support level, right? These levels tend to hold as support or resistance levels, and if they break, they tend to plunge hard, right? For example, we held support level over here at around 47,000, but then we eventually broke below and it plunged significantly, right? So the fact that we're holding these 30,000 very strongly is really, I think that's part of the reason why we saw such a strong breakout earlier, a couple weeks ago. And starting from last week, right? And this was really when Elon Musk did his interview, the podcast with Kathy Wood of ARK Invest and Jack Dorsey of Square and Twitter. And he basically reiterated his position that he's still bullish and believes in Bitcoin, and not only that he's still holding Bitcoin with Tesla and himself, but also with SpaceX, right? His space company, which is it's a private company, so we didn't know if he held any Bitcoin, because private companies don't have to disclose things publicly, right? So the fact that he admitted that SpaceX held Bitcoin and that he's bullish on Bitcoin, and that not only that, but Tesla may one day resume accepting Bitcoin as payment again, which is part of the reason why this fell, was that Elon Musk basically suspended allowing Bitcoin as payment for Tesla, right? And originally this huge move up over here back earlier this year was due to the fact that Elon accepted Bitcoin as payment for Tesla cars, and then he retracted that statement around in May, because he felt that mining was not sustainable, or using renewable energy, and it was just using really dirty energy like coal, right? But another thing happened that also exacerbated this plunge, right? Which is that China started to crack down on miners and basically just banning mining from China, and that's interesting because, first of all, the hash rate started to fall, right? We talked about how their hash rate peaked in April of 2014 this year, which is also when the price peaked, right? And of course, hash rate and the price are linked or correlated, because when the hash rate goes up, the Bitcoin network is more secure. There's more people mining, more people verifying transactions, and that makes Bitcoin more valuable, right? But when miners start to go down, like when China started to ban miners and the miners had to shut down, that caused the hash rate to plunge, and also the price came down with it. But now we're seeing a bottom over here, and we're starting to see a strong recovery, and I can see Bitcoin the price continue higher if the hash rate continues to move up. And the reason why is that a lot of the Chinese miners that shut down in China, they're relocating to other countries, but also other mining stocks like American miners are starting to get more of the market share of the hash rate, right? Like Riot and Mara. have been doing very well, actually outperforming Bitcoin in the last several months, right? And they look like they're about to have a strong breakout, which is really great. And so that's just great for the competition, right? But not only that, going back to Elon, a lot of the dirty mining, like coal mining, was actually in China. So the fact that China is cracking down, and not only that, but in America, they formed, a lot of miners have formed the Bitcoin Mining Council, headed by Michael Saylor, and they're basically pledging to make mining more renewable and sustainable. So not only is that great for Bitcoin, generally speaking, the price, and also for the mining industry, and for our environment too, but this is going to increase the chances that that Elon will resume accepting Bitcoin as payment in the future, which will likely provide a big catalyst for the price to resume higher, right? And also, just to talk about how the mining, when it recovers, this is ultimately going to be a good thing, right? Because even though that the price has been going down, I talked about this in our last video, that this is short-term pain, right? This is short-term pain because ultimately, in the long term, having the mining hash rate redistributed globally is better for Bitcoin because it makes it more decentralized, and it's harder for different miners to collude and try to attack or manipulate the network, right? So this is just short-term pain, in my opinion. And yeah, so Bitcoin right now looking very strong. Let's look at the technicals. We talked about how these support levels, the silver line is our 50-day simple moving average, the gold line is our 100-day simple moving average, and the 200-day simple moving average is the blue line, right? These support levels are very strong. For the last couple months, when we were in this uptrend, they acted as strong support level. Then we broke below, and these moving averages basically started to cross and cross basically in a bearish pattern, right? But the fact that we're starting to not only break through, but to hold these moving averages is really, really bullish, right? We first blew through the 50 days resistance level over here pretty easily, and then we came up here. And our last video, I left us off around this level, this price, and I said that when we hit the gold line over here, we were probably going to face strong resistance, because not only is this a strong moving average that we failed to hold over here, but this is also our last our range high, right, over here around 40,000. So we draw a line at around 40,000. Not only is this sort of like the range peak over here, but also this is where, at least when we last left off, this was where the gold line was. Obviously, a couple of days have passed since our last video, and the gold line has moved down and down. So we actually, the price actually broke above very strong over the weekend, but we are starting to see a bit of a pullback, which to me is nothing really that much to worry about, considering the fact that we had 10 consecutive green candles in a row, which is something we haven't had since 2017. So this is really a historic, very rare event, and to me this just shows how bullish the price action is right now, because the fact that we've been in this downtrend, and then people are start willing to buy up and push the price up, right? And yeah, you can make an argument that this is also like short sellers getting squeezed, but I mean, this is not just, I think there's also been data showing that whales have been accumulating a lot in July, right, and taking it off the exchange too. So we look at our oscillators. Of course, for a long time we were in this downtrend, right? Well, we finally broke the downtrend, right, with this massive 10-day rally. So that's looking really great for the momentum indicator. And MACD not only finally broke below this downtrend as well, along with the RSI, but we've also finally crossed back above positive territory, right? Printing green histogram bars, which is really important, because this is showing that buyers are, the momentum is starting to shift from sellers to buyers, and this will likely continue up higher. So in my opinion, based on my analysis, I do think the price action right now is somewhere kind of like we were in December over here, or back in October over here, where it just consolidates. And as long as we continue to defend our support level, especially around the 100-day moving average, this gold line, right? We defend 40,000. I believe that Bitcoin will likely move sideways a little bit and then continue up higher, just like we did back over here in December and also earlier in October before moving higher, right? I think there's a lot of people who are expecting the price to pull back a little bit more, but I'm not really sure that's going to happen, because first of all, we had a lot of buyers coming in to push the price up higher. But I do think that now there's more like positive sentiment in terms of the fundamental news, and there's just more positive catalysts that can happen in the future to push the price even higher to all-time highs. So, but before we step further, let me just look at the macro, because I'm very bullish right now, obviously, but something important to talk about is a possible bearish scenario, right? Before we continue on, and so a couple weeks ago, I talked about how in a bear market, Bitcoin, when it comes down, it tends to touch the weekly 50 simple moving average, which is the silver line, right? And we tend to have a strong bounce. Once we touch it, we bounce up, and then but we're unable to hold it. This is during a bear market, right? And then when eventually it crosses below the silver line, it goes down even more into a bear market for the rest of the year, right? Same thing here. We came down and we touched the silver line, right? This 50-day weekly, and then bounced, and then but we were unable to hold it, and then eventually went to a bear market, right? So right now, we basically are doing something similar where we're bouncing. However, it's possible still we could be in a bear market and this comes down lower. As long as Bitcoin stays above the silver line right over here, and it'll continue to go up a little higher in the next couple of weeks. As long as Bitcoin continues to stay above that line and it continues to break above and then move beyond the previous all-time high around 65,000, Bitcoin should continue up higher to 100,000 and beyond. But just to keep that in mind, I don't want to make this video and just say, oh, this is for sure going up, because if we look at the analysis, right, Bitcoin has traditionally entered a bear market if it's not been able to hold the silver line, right? The silver line, the 50-day weekly simple moving average. And yes, we are seeing similar price action of a bouncing before either going higher or continuing on lower. So as long as we hold above the silver line, we should be fine. But that's just something to watch out for, right? As we continue the analysis and continue looking forward, that is possible risky scenario, right? But for now, as long as the bulls defend 40,000, we try to stay above 40,000. The next resistance level is this blue line, the 200-day simple moving average, and this line is really important because in our previous bull cycle in 2017, we always stayed above this blue line, right? And this is going to be a strong resistance level in my opinion, because not only for that reason that we stayed above in our previous bull market, but the fact that we plunged so hard below and we basically stayed below. I mean, we tried to break above in this bounce, right? But we failed. And we've basically been below this blue line for several months now, this 200-day simple moving average. And this is a really important line as well, not only for that, but because institutional, like hedge funds, mutual funds, like professional traders, right? The 200-day is a really important moving average for the long term. So if we are able to break above and hold above this blue line, right, which is around 45,000 right now, I can see more big money coming in because they're going to be more confident. As long as we remain below the blue line, the higher the probability that we will likely enter a bear market, especially if we continue to move down to 30,000, right? And that would go in line with the bear scenario I talked about. I just talked about how we plunge below the silver line. So hopefully the bulls can keep the price above this silver line, right, the 50-day, and we're able to move towards the all-time high and break above. And on the daily chart, that would look like a strong break above not only the 200-day simple moving average resistance over here, but also this Fibonacci support turned resistance level, right? We held support here, but we broke support over here, and now we flipped that to resistance. So a lot of resistance all the way up to 50,000, but if we're able to break 50,000, all-time high of 65,000 is a piece of cake in my opinion. And yeah, I think that once we break 50,000, it should be a lot easier to go higher and reach $100,000, which is my target for the end of this year. I actually think we'll go beyond, and I'll explain in the next several minutes based on different indicators why I think we'll go above 100,000. But as long as Bitcoin can defend 40,000 in the short to medium term, I do think that Bitcoin will likely go up higher rather than this being a bull trap and continue on lower, which right now it seems like the bulls are trying to do. So hopefully today, the close in a couple hours, we're able to close above this gold line, and that'll give us baby steps towards continue up higher. But don't be scared, for now at least, that we have 3 consecutive red candles, because we did have a historic 10 consecutive green candles, right? So having a bit of a pullback is nothing really to be scared about. But we definitely want to see if we can hold $40,000. And if we can hold $40,000, then $50,000 is definitely the next target to try to break through, right? 50,000. A lot of resistance up here. Now let's look at some of the other indicators to help us see where the price of Bitcoin could be headed, and to also strengthen my belief that Bitcoin is likely to continue higher for the remainder of the year. Not only that, but also above 100,000. So the fear greed index is still pretty low, right? It has improved since Bitcoin had that incredible 10-day rally, right? But we're still in the fear, which is not necessarily a bad thing, because that means there's a lot more room to run before it starts to signal overbought, right? So there's still a lot more room that Bitcoin can go up a lot higher before we start to get into territory where you might want to consider taking profits, or perhaps selling a significant amount of positions. So still a lot of room to run. Hash rate, of course, is recovering now, and hopefully we continue to see the hash rate move higher and reclaim all-time highs and continue up higher as the Chinese miners set up in new countries, and also existing miners, especially in North America, continue to expand their mining operations, right, and get more of the hash rate. Now let's look at the indicators. The 2-year multiplier, right? We talked about this previously, how when the price of Bitcoin in the 2-year multiplier goes above the orange-red line and becomes shaded, that's a good time to take profits, right? Good time to take profits. Now this chart doesn't necessarily call the top, but this gives you a good window of opportunity to take profits and also buy at the bottom over here, right? Or no, over here, and also over here. So this indicator does a pretty good job. I mean, during the pandemic when it crashed, it ended up signaling a buying opportunity, right? And also in 2018, 2019, right, when we were in the bear market, and the 2015 bear market bottom. So if you had sold up here and bought here and sold and bought and sold, you might not have been able to, you don't need to like time it perfectly, but you would have still made a lot of money, right? And for now, not only have we not broken above this orange-red line, we basically have pulled back down, and there's just so much room to run up higher, right? I mean, this is not signaling overbought by any means, right? This isn't signaling a time to sell or get out of your positions like we did in 2013 or 2017, right? Because we touched the line and we pulled back. We didn't even break above the line, right? So the fact that Bitcoin is pulling back now, it does seem like it's somewhere kind of a mix of 2013, where we had 2 cycle tops and a big mid-year pullback, and also 2017, where we had several pullbacks. But we do seem to be pulling back to the middle of this channel, which is pretty much where it was back in 2017. 2013, definitely things became really overbought, but 2013 was a different market because it was more volatile, less participants, right? More participants today, higher market cap, higher volume, right? Needed to push the price higher. And so the good news is that as Bitcoin continues to move sideways, and even as it continues to slowly recover, right, we're going to see the upper boundary over here continue up higher. So right now it's at 101,000. Historically, Bitcoin has not only touched that line before signaling an exit signal, but it's also broken above and continued up higher. So we might actually see the price of Bitcoin, according to this indicator, go up beyond 100,000, maybe up to 200,000 or beyond, right? 300,000 maybe. But we'll have to see by the time. We'll update you in the future and see where the price is when we finally cross the orange line, right? Because it could be a lot higher by the time we cross, and that could give us even higher a price to sell Bitcoin at, right? Price cycle top indicator is definitely an important indicator in calling the top. Historically, it's been very accurate in calling the top, and actually called the top over here a couple weeks ago. Of course, being the optimist that I am, I thought this would be a false positive, so I didn't sell nearly enough positions, and I actually bought a little bit over here. So this was a mistake. I'll admit that. Not a perfect trader, but you got to learn from your mistakes, right, to get better. But the good news is that now I know that to trust this indicator a lot more, right? So I do think that we're going to see something very similar to 2013, where we have 2 crosses within 1 year, 2 cycle tops, right? And this being a mid-cycle bottom. And as you can see, when we finally crossed below, and the price went below the lines, but it finally went back above and touched. When it finally broke above the orange line, that was a good time to buy back in, and you could ride this all the way up to the next cycle cross, right? And right now, the price is just touching this orange line, right? Yeah, it just pulled back a little bit because we had this incredible 10-day rally. But if the price is able to break above this orange line, it will likely signal a good buying opportunity. And the fact that we've been going sideways for a while now, the lines have been kind of diverging, which will give us more time for the price to go up higher before it crosses into a bearish cross, right? We said that when the orange line crosses above the green line, that's when we get the signal to sell, which is this dotted orange line, right? But now that the green line is above the orange line, that's a lot more bullish. But we want to see the price cross above the orange line because historically that has been a good signal to enter the market, right? When the price crosses the orange line and the green line is above the orange line, right? That's a good time to buy in over here and over here. And of course over here and over here. So if the price is able to break above the orange line and stay above the orange line, that could be a good signal to enter. And if the price of Bitcoin goes above 100,000, this will give us more time for this lines to cross before it signals the exit, and that could be a lot higher, maybe 200,000 or 300,000. So, but this will definitely be a indicator that I'll be used to time my exit if Bitcoin does continue higher for the rest of the year. But definitely for the next video, we'll probably find out by then if this is able to cross above the orange line or if it will still be rejected, right? But yeah, so that might take a couple of days to play out. Out Multiplier, right? Out Multiplier has signaled an exit when it's not only broken above this shaded orange area, but spiked significantly into it, right? Here, 2013 and 2017. Here we haven't even spiked into it, right? This seems more like a mid-cycle correction than it does a top, right? Nothing about what we're at right now is saying that we're overbought or anything like that, right? It seems like we still have a long way to go. And not only that, we actually had a oversold signal over here, which could have been which signaled a good time to get into the market, right? That we had in 2015 and 2018 and 2020. So nothing about this is telling us that Bitcoin has topped out or is overbought or anything like that. If anything, we're very oversold, and there's still a lot of room to run up higher, right? Golden ratio multiplier has historically signaled top when the price of Bitcoin touches the dotted line. But Bitcoin hasn't moved at enough intensity to even signal the print of a dotted line, right? To touch it. And we basically touched this purple line before pulling back. And historically, these purple lines has been strong resistance level, right? Like in 2017. In bear markets, it's important to note that in a bear market, we plunge below the lower boundary line, which is the orange line, and we stayed below it for a while, right? But the fact that we did go below it, but we quickly recovered. Right? We quickly recovered and bounced above the orange line. So as long as we stay above the orange line, Bitcoin should be out of a bear market, right? As long as we stay above the orange line and continue up higher, and not only continue up higher, but these upper boundary lines are actually going to continue to go up higher. And right now it's at $98,000, right? So historically, Bitcoin has not only broken above the purple line, it's gone a lot higher to touch the dotted line. So when Bitcoin breaks above the orange line, a dotted line will start to print, and that dotted line will be a lot higher, probably above 100,000, right? But more details to come as the price action develops, and we'll see. It will give us a better estimate of where Bitcoin could potentially top in the future. But the important thing to note is that nothing about this is telling us that we already hit a cycle top, right? If anything, we're in a mid-cycle correction that was exacerbated or made worse by the fact that not only Elon Musk retracting his statement that of Tesla accepting Bitcoin as payment for Tesla cars, but also the fact that China was cracking down on miners. So I do think that we are still in a mid-cycle correction, and this will likely continue up higher before it signals a sell signal, an overbought signal, right? Z-score, of course, has told us to sell when we've broken above this shaded reddish orange area. Strong, right? 2013 double cycle top, double cycle top, 2017 top here. And of course, nothing about this is telling us that we are in a overbought territory or that we have reached the top, right? If anything, these lines are basically telling us that are more in line with a mid-cycle correction like we did in 2017, right? And a strong pullback, perhaps into oversold territory, perhaps a good time to buy back in. And by the way, this is not financial advice or anything. You have to make your own financial decisions. I'm just giving you my own analysis, my own opinion. Don't copy my trades or anything like that. This is just for entertainment and educational purposes only. This is not financial advice again, okay? You're responsible for your own trades. Last thing we're gonna look at is stock to flow model. Of course, this is one of the most famous indicators that everybody talks about, right? How Bitcoin tends to go up every time we have a supply shock. Every 4 years is a halving, right? And unless Bitcoin is released into the world, and that tends to cause a supply shock, and the price will generally react by going a lot higher, overreaching, and then correcting back to the median. And this this red line is basically the average of the medium of where the price will be, generally speaking, right? And what we see in cycles is that we tend to overshoot and then we correct below, right? We overshoot on the upside and overshoot on the downside, but we tend to even out on the red line, which is where the average or the median price should be, right? Based on this this model. And so you can see how the price over time tends to trend the red line over here and over here. So what this line is what this model is suggesting is that Bitcoin will likely, like if it follows the same patterns in the past, it will likely shoot above this red line, which is around 80,000, and go up a lot higher, perhaps to 200 or 300,000, right, by the end of this year, or at least that's what has happened historically, right? History doesn't always repeat exactly, but it does tend to rhyme. So if Bitcoin right now below the red line, meaning that it is oversold, undervalued, right, it should be at least where this red line is, right, based on this model. But of course, we know that in a strong bullish market, this tends to overshoot. So this model is suggesting that we might see Bitcoin end 2021 well above 100,000, right? And we can look at this line over here, telling us how far the price has deviated from this model, right? And this deviation is very similar that we had back in July last month. It's very similar to also July of 2017. So this is a great coincidence, because not only do we see the deviation very similar levels that we saw exactly 4 years ago, right? The same months 4 years ago. And 4 years ago, right, July 2017 was also a very bullish year, right? We saw the price rise exponentially. So this model is also like the other models I just looked at, all the other indicators that we looked at, is not, no way is it telling us that we have hit the top of the cycle or we're overbought or anything. Like, if anything, all these models that we've gone through are telling us that Bitcoin is likely in a mid-cycle correction rather than about to enter a bear market or anything like that, right? Of course, there's no guarantees, and we got to look at the market as it develops and moves forward, right? But based on all the models, based on all the price action, based on the fact that we had this strong breakout and all the fundamentals, I do think Bitcoin is going to continue higher through the end of the year. I do think Bitcoin, and I've been saying this many times, I do think that this was the bottom, right? Of course, my conviction was tested a couple of times when we hit below, but I never sold any of my positions. You know, I'm not the perfect market timer, right? I've said that many times. I bought over here, I bought down here, I bought down here, I bought here, I bought shares, I bought calls on minor stocks. I bought more cryptocurrencies, spot positions, and I've just been buying a lot. And I haven't timed it perfectly, but overall, you know, maybe what I'm trying to say is, like, as a trader, kind of like what I talked about in the 2-year multiplier, right? You don't always have to time exactly the top or the bottom. As long as you find areas, right? Like if you follow this model and you started selling even at like when it started to cross, like you could have had all this room to sell and made higher profits or bought even lower. But as long as you sold above this general area or bought in this general area, right, where it turns shaded red, orange, or shaded green area, like you would have still made a lot of money. So that's what I'm trying to say. Like, it's okay to not be a perfect timer, but as long as you get the levels correct, you can still make a lot of money, right? So anyways, just to summarize, back on the technicals, everything is looking really good right now. The fact that we closed not only a green month finally, right, after 3 consecutive red months, very brutal, but also a hammer reversal. So yeah, we're seeing a little red right now, but usually when a new monthly candle prints, even if it ends up closing green, we do see a pullback. You see it like a wick here. Like almost every green candle on here has a wick below the previous close, right? So it's not out of the ordinary. And the weekly looks really good. Again, just to reiterate, as long as we stay above the silver line, right? We're seeing a bounce right now in the price that's very similar that we saw in the bear markets in 2014, 2018. But as long as we stay above the silver line, we don't cross below it. Right? As long as we stay above, we should continue up higher. And this is really the only bearish scenario that I can think of right now, because we have such a strong breakout over the last 2 weeks, right? If we continue up higher and then we fail to hold the silver line, we will likely enter a bear market. So that's really the only bearish scenario, and it's really important to talk about that, right? Because we want to look at the market in all possibilities, all probabilities, right? But I do think that probability of us going higher is a lot higher than us going lower, based on everything I talked about in this video. And yeah, so lastly, what I want to see, at least in the short term, is us to at least hold 40,000, right? 40,000, this is our this is right now, we're trying to, the price of Bitcoin is trying to form 40,000 as a support level, not only in this previous range high, but also in our 100-day moving average, which we broke above over the weekend over here. But right now we're trying to test this gold line, right, the 100-day moving average, and flip this from resistance to support. And we did break through. So we broke through this resistance level pretty strongly, but we're trying to retest it now, and we need to turn this into support. We need to turn this into support by holding 40,000. And then next resistance level is 50,000. And once we break 50,000, like I said in my last video, all-time high of 65,000 should be a piece of cake, right? So overall, just to summarize, very bullish on Bitcoin. I expect the price to go up a lot higher, and I expect, based on everything I talked about, based on all the indicator, all the models, all the charts I talked about, I do expect Bitcoin to surpass 100,000 by the end of this year, maybe even 200 or 300,000. But let's not get a little too excited or optimistic. We want to base our predictions based on how the price action develops going forward, and our probabilities and our prediction will change based on the price action going forward. And I'll definitely be there to update you and navigate this market with you as the price action develops going forward. Thank you for watching this video. If you found it helpful, useful, informative, please like this video, leave a comment below, and subscribe for updates. I appreciate all your support. Thank you again, and have a great day.